The crisp autumn air swept gently through the city park as Daniel Parker tightened his jacket around himself. It was Sunday afternoon, and he had come here to clear his mind. Life hadn't been easy for him lately. His small business had collapsed during the pandemic, his bills were piling up, and he had been struggling just to make rent. Despite everything, Daniel tried to stay positive. He often reminded himself of what his mother used to say, "When you can't do big things, at least do small things with kindness." As he strolled past the playground, he heard something that made him stop in his tracks, the sound of a child softly crying. He turned his head and noticed a little girl, no older than 6, sitting alone on a bench near the swings. Her tiny shoulders were shaking, her hands clutching a worn-out doll, and tears streaked her cheeks. Daniel's heart immediately tightened. He looked around. Parents were chatting on benches, teenagers were on their phones, joggers passed by, but no one stopped. Everyone seemed too busy in their own world to notice the child sitting all alone. Trembling with fear, Daniel approached slowly, careful not to scare her. "Hey, sweetheart," he said gently, kneeling down to her level. "Are you okay? Where's your mom or dad?" The little girl looked up at him, her big brown eyes glistening with tears. I don't know where Daddy went," she whispered. "He was right here, and then I couldn't find him." Daniel felt a lump in his throat. He could see the panic in her tiny face. "Don't worry," he said softly, offering a reassuring smile. "We'll find him. You're safe with me." He guided her to a nearby park office and asked the staff to make an announcement over the loudspeakers. While they waited, he sat beside her, telling her little jokes and showing her funny faces to make her laugh. Slowly, the fear in her eyes began to fade. She even offered him a piece of candy from her small backpack. Minutes felt like hours. But finally, a man came running toward them, his face pale with worry, his voice breaking. "Lily," he cried, kneeling down and wrapping the little girl in his arms. Tears rolled down his cheeks as he kissed her forehead again and again. "I thought I lost you." The girl clung to him tightly. "Daddy, I was so scared, but this man helped me." The father turned to Daniel, his voice shaking. "Sir, I don't even know how to thank you. You don't understand. She's all I have. If anything had happened to her." His voice broke again. Daniel smiled humbly. "I'm just glad she's safe. That's what matters." The man gripped Daniel's hand firmly. "Please, give me your name. I won't forget this." Daniel hesitated, but eventually gave his name before walking away quietly, never expecting to see them again. The next morning, Daniel's life returned to its usual struggles. He woke up in his tiny apartment, wondering how he would pay his overdue bills. He spent the day looking for work, sending out resumes, but nothing came through. By evening, he returned home exhausted and defeated. As he opened his apartment door, he noticed an envelope taped to it. Confused, he pulled it off and tore it open. Inside was a note that read, "To the man who saved my daughter, you saved more than a child. You saved my world. Please, meet me tomorrow at 10 a.m. at the Grandview Hotel. Don't say no." Richard. Daniel frowned. Who was Richard? And then it hit him, the man from the park, Lily's father. The next day, Daniel reluctantly went to the hotel. He walked into the grand lobby, feeling completely out of place in his worn jacket. At the front desk, the receptionist smiled and led him upstairs to a private suite. When the doors opened, Daniel froze. The man from the park stood there, but this time, he wasn't just a worried father. He was dressed in an immaculate suit, surrounded by staff, his presence commanding respect. "Mr. Parker," he said warmly, shaking Daniel's hand. "I'm Richard Lawson. I'm the CEO of Lawson Enterprises." Daniel's jaw dropped. He had heard the name before. Richard Lawson was one of the most successful businessmen in the city, a billionaire who owned companies across industries. "I know you didn't help my daughter for any reward," Richard said, "but good men like you deserve to be recognized. You saved Lily when no one else cared to notice her. That tells me more about your character than any resume ever could." Daniel stammered, "Sir, I don't need anything. I just did what anyone should do." Richard shook his head firmly. "No, not everyone would have. And that's exactly why I want you on my team. People like you are rare." Daniel blinked in disbelief. "On your team?" "Yes," Richard said with a smile. "I'm offering you a position at my company, a chance to rebuild your life. And don't worry about your debts, consider them taken care of. From now on, you'll never have to struggle alone." Tears welled in Daniel's eyes. For so long, he had felt invisible, beaten down by life. And now, because of one small act of kindness, everything was changing. Months later, Daniel sat in his new office at Lawson Enterprises, his life completely transformed. He was no longer the man worried about bills or rent. He was building a future he never thought possible. And every week, little Lily would visit him with her father, bringing him drawings and calling him her hero. Daniel often looked back to that day in the park, the moment he decided not to walk past, but to stop and help. He realized something powerful. Sometimes, life doesn't change because of money, luck, or status. Sometimes, it changes because of a simple act of kindness that touches the right heart. And for Daniel, saving a crying child didn't just change her life. It saved his own. Moral: never ignore someone in need. That small moment of compassion may turn into the very blessing that changes your entire future.